Good morning, everyone. Um, I welcome you to today's discussion. Yesterday, we talked about in the beginning the number 7, and we talked about what it meant. And there were, we discussed history and scripture during that period of time. So, are there any questions that you have from yesterday or from anything that you have encountered during the course of the week? None? Okay.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is Barbara. Just an observation. We've been talking about harmony and loving kindness and all of the building blocks, if you will, for spiritual life or spiritual essence. And one of the things that struck me is that in Israel, I asked myself the question, what would a forgiving heart look like? What would a forgiving heart do? And it seemed to me that the answer was, well, right now there's nobody, there's not many with a forgiving heart. And so the issue is European Jews in Israel, European Jews in Israel are just as afraid of losing power as conservatives are here. They're just as afraid of losing control. And I understand the nuances of why that is and how the people of the Jewish people have been tormented for centuries. But on the other hand, a forgiving heart would say something similar to, okay, 1,500 hostages. It was atrocious that this occurred. It was barbaric that this occurred. But now, there's additional barbarism that's going on with what's happening with the bombing in a city that half of them are children. And so the question is, what does a forgiving heart do? And a forgiving heart would say, okay, let's stop all of this madness and look at what either of these opponents want. Well, if peace were the obvious end, there would be no additional war. There would be no additional pressing in of Gaza, no more bombing of Gaza. The Palestinians have said they want their own country. Well, if it's like that baby in the Bible that both women claimed, and they were going to cut the baby in half as a just, I guess, solution for each woman. You get half and you get half. Well, that's it. Strikes me as the same thing that's happening there. If you don't want to live with each other, you get half and you get half. And hopefully, as time moves on, they revert back to where they were originally when everybody lived together. Jews, Muslims, Christians in that area. Everybody was able to live together, was able to feed their families, was able to enjoy life such that they didn't feel the need to lord it over each other or to control each other. So the United States part in this is that they're supplying Israel with so much in terms of its warfare armory. What if it simply says, okay, we want peace, they want peace, and you don't want peace, and thousands are dead. If you don't agree to a ceasefire, we're not going to agree to send you weapons to the extent that we have anymore. I mean, use the leverage that we have. until we get to a point of complete change of heart. Anyway, just an observation. Thank you.
Thank you. In-depth observation and right on target. Anyone else want to ask any questions or make a comment in reference to what Barbara just stated?
I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
I didn't think Barbara thought, but what she just asked made me think, ask the question, can we desire for those, quote, individuals in control to have a not sure how to phrase it, but can we desire for them to find that peaceful solution?
We've already
yeah.
done it. It's already in the macro. And there are people whose hearts are hardened. And what happens with hardened hearts is what you see. It's what we see. It's what we observe. Not only in that part of the country, but here. Not only here, but all over the world where people are battling each other for whatever their reason is.
So I have to
it's in
remember.
the macro.
That's what I need to remember, that it's in the macro, but it's their choice to receive it.
Actually,
Yes.
it's their choice to receive it. However, we can influence it. I read an article. I'll tell you in a second. I read an article last night. And I should have bookmarked it. But that article said that when Secretary of State Blinken went to Israel and talked with Netanyahu, he said to Netanyahu, and this comes from people who are in the media, he said to Netanyahu, we are not trying to stop you, but we are having pressures at home, and we want you to help us. So we are asking for a pause so that humanitarian needs can be met. Now, if you're telling him, we're not trying to stop you from what you're doing, we just want you to pause, all they want to do is get 2 or 3 trucks in there so they can talk about having humanitarian needs being met. So how do we influence that? Because Biden and all of the other people who are in power in this country, are pressing for Israel to continue. We influence that by virtue of not only discussing it while we're here, but we have not made our desires known to everyone on the phone, even though we've talked about it. But all of us desiring for this to come to an end is the way rather that we influence it. It gives us greater influence than we think it does. It gives us the power to push decisions into the macro. And the universe hears and feels the energy of our desires. And however it ends, that's the way it ends. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm very, very aware that all of this started because it was necessary to expose the underbelly of racism, the underbelly of greed in that area. So before I go on, Jamil, does that help you?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Pastor, can I say something about the touch of the greed that you just referenced?
Go ahead.
So one of the things where we talk about greed and the responsibility falls back on us, and I guess people aren't aware of it, but when we supply weapons to Ukraine and Israel, that actually boosts our economy because we get greedy because now we get to replace those weapons. We get to make new ones and we get to replace them. And so that's where our government gets a little excited because, war sometimes helps bolster our economy. And so I think the emphasis on the greed and the racism is really still the root, of a lot of these issues, but capitalizing on it as well, it's kind of a double-edged sword. So that's some of the frustrating part, is that we're actually helping ourselves. It looks like we're sending billions there, but we really get to replace that now because now you get to ramp up production of things that you wanted to do. So it kind of gives that excuse to have that cycle of greed. Just keep, in motion. You just kind of reset it. So how do we, combat that?
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The way we combat that is the same way that we influence what's going on. When we influence what's going on, that in itself will speak to the greed that's in play here. There are shipments every single day of the week, 7 days a week, of military supplies going to Israel. And when we talk about this ending in the manner that is desired by the universe, we don't know what that looks like. But we do know that is what our desires are, and we cannot paint a picture of what it should be. I do believe the reason that everything jumped off there at this given time is because that area forever and a day has been seen as the middle of the world, meaning that it is the center of our spiritual life. And that area was the center of spirituality from the beginning. Even during the reign of the Kushite kingdom, that area was the place of spirituality. That's where people went to learn and to see their relationship with their Creator, to learn of it rather. So that area is spiritually important. And I believe that this is the last vesture of pushback, for lack of a better word, that we encounter in such horrendous fashion. One of the things to keep in mind is that European media outlets are not referring to to Hamas as terrorists. They're referring to them either as militant or governmental entity, because they were put in place in 2007 as a result of a election that was deemed to be legitimate by the group who traveled with Jimmy Carter around the world to oversee elections. So if you want to delegitimize something, you label the people as terrorists. And no one in a governmental position in terms of leadership negotiates with terrorists. So they put Hamas in a non-negotiating position, as well as Fatah. Fatah is the ruler in the West Bank. They put them in a position of non-negotiation, and the Europeans are not down with that. They are not accepting of that. So now there is a split between the mindset of Europe and the U.S., even though the Europeans are not, the leadership is not publicizing it, but there are news outlets from Europe who are publicizing it. So we are in a quandary as far as the politics of it is. But we are on a study course in terms of the spiritual journey that we are on. You hear a lot about making sure that you come down on the right side of history. I would augment that by saying, make sure that you come down on the righteous side of humanity, meaning that righteousness must prevail. So that being considered the center of spirituality is now, it is being desecrated and has been desecrated from the time that the battles started, well, actually from the time that it became a British colony. And now it is time to end that desecration. It is time to bring civility, stability back to that area. And there are times when it takes something like this to give us a wake-up call as to what should be and how things ought to be. If it were not for what is taking place, we would not be having this discussion about putting it in the macro to bring stability back to that area. So as we express our desires for peace, then that also includes the shipment of military weapons, because we won't have peace if that continues. And I would like to address another part of that after I see if there are questions or comments in regards to what's been said. Are there any questions or comments? Well, let me ask this question before I go on. Does this make sense to you?
Yes. We have an opportunity that the world has never had, and that is to bring peace to the entire globe. We are going to face some delicate times in the very near future, because as it stands right now, it appears that the presidential election, the results of it will be
Donald Trump as president. Because Palestinians have said they are not going to vote for Biden. They actually told him, we will remember this. And if they sit out, then Trump is going to win. Now, am I comfortable with that? No, I'm not. I am very comfortable with however whatever results there are from this. I'm comfortable, very comfortable with it. Because I know that whatever happens, it happened because the universe allowed it to, and it's for the purpose of bringing balance, harmony to humanity. The presence of Britain and the Eastern Europeans who are currently there, the presence of them are actually the stabilizing forces that have been there forever and a day, seemingly. So, is it going to be the extrication of them from that area? Or is it going to be an opportunity, a continuous battle in that area? I do believe that with what's happening in regards to the political climate in this country, there are going to be events that take place that will cause some to shut up, to be nervous about what's coming next. And that nervousness will be based upon what happens in this next election. If Donald Trump wins the next election, then every church of Africans in this country will be nervous. If Donald Trump wins the next election, then Christian nationalism will be the prevailing force in this country. If Biden wins this election, I believe that the instability will continue. And if it does continue, I agree with Kathy with the case assessment of it, that the outcome will be death. The Creator will take him out of the earth if it takes that in order to bring stability to humanity. Any questions or comments about that? Anything you want to add to it? Question? Okay. No
I don't
questions,
know.
no comments. Go ahead.
Hearing you say it just kind of makes me sick to my stomach. But I also realize that what will be will be. So I was just reading about all the little things that Trump is trying to do. I forget what they call them anyway, Project 2047 or whatever. Anyway, but he wants to get rid of a lot of stuff, like basically stamp out a lot of things that many poorer, more rural people depend on. And the irony is that a lot of those poorer rural people are his supporters. I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me what he wants to do. And his supporters are still backing him. I don't know, it's just kind of scary, but also I know that ultimately it will be what needs to happen to bring balance. But
Well,
I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to get rid of this nervousness I already feel.
And that's imperative that you get rid of it. Because if you don't, then that would be mixed messages sent to the universe about what we want. Mixed messages put in the macro. And it is imperative that we are on the same page when it comes to releasing to the universe all of the politics of the earth for the purpose of the earth being guided by spirituality. And that's something we can get into later. The people who are in rural areas who are supporting him have already, always voted against their self-interest. Always. Now, the ideal of Trump being reelected also puts fear in those in power because they are afraid that Trump has learned, well, he didn't learn anything, but those around him have learned the weaknesses in the system. They're going to exploit them. And in exploiting them, only the wealthy will have access to anything in this country, and the quote-unquote middle class, for lack of a better term, and the poor will suffer. I mean, really suffer, because he will have in place people who will enforce whatever he desires to be enforced. Any law, any policy that he enacts, they are not going to stand against it. So I don't say that, and I don't say that to make anyone nervous. I say that because that is the reality that we must face. And I don't think that we will get much of a different reality from Biden when it comes to balance. I don't. He won't be as blatant with it as Trump will. I don't think that he will support Christian nationalism, but I do know that Trump will, even though he doesn't believe in anything except money. So there are people who have manipulated this system ever since it has been in operation, who are afraid of what may happen if Trump is elected. They are genuinely afraid of that. So they themselves will be making every effort to make sure that he doesn't. So what am I saying? I am saying that the Creator has brought this unsavory nation to a place where it is imploding by virtue of fighting, having a battle rather within the power. A house divided cannot stand. I do believe that scripture has nothing to do with the home, but everything to do with what we are seeing in this country right now. The house of America cannot stand being divided as it is. And the division of it is much deeper than the division based on race or religion. The racial division is nothing compared to the division of the power structure. The last time that there was a division in the power structure, or appears to be anyway, that was the Civil War. And now, and what controlled the Civil War is that states who had seceded from the country. There will be no states seceded from the country. So this structure, this power structure, is at odds with each other, and it is doomed to fall. Now, once it falls, what's in its place? I have no idea. No idea. But I do know who's in its place. And the who that's in its place is the spiritual essence of those who are seeking balance in the earth. Make sense? So, we should no longer give any credence to the lie about separation of church and state, because they are one. But we must do everything in our power to stay focused on our journey. And we cannot allow anyone to deter us from that focus. Can't do that. I'm glad we are talking about this, because Audrey, I don't think that you're the only one who's nervous about Trump being reelected. I'm being elected, rather, I'm sorry. I don't think that you're the only one who's nervous about that. I think that nervousness permeates the atmosphere, especially with people of African descent. So us talking about that now brings peace to the hearts of those who are now nervous, and that there would be some kind of semblance of stability in their lives because of what we are talking about right now. Does that make sense, Ms. Audrey?
Yeah, and that helps me too. Yeah, it's just the unknown.
Yeah. And guess what?
We can dwell on the unknown, or we can dwell on the known. And if we dwell on the known, what do we know? We know who we are. We know whose we are. We know what our purpose is. And all of this is happening so that we also know beyond the shadow of a doubt that regardless of whether we're walking underwater, this chaos, that there is peace in the midst of that storm. And if we are the universe, and we bring balance, and we do, then we are the peace in the midst of all of this chaotic storm. And so acknowledging our nervousness is a given. We have to do that. But then we have to remember what our purpose is. And our purpose is that it doesn't matter who's where, as you said, Audrey, earlier. It doesn't matter who's where or what. It doesn't matter who's in power or what. If we know our purpose and we are standing on that known, that truth, it doesn't matter. The universe will work things out as it should be worked out. The issue is we may want to see it, but that's not. We can't see things with our natural eyes. We should the peace that we get is seeing it with the spiritual eye, and that's what we've got to dwell on each and every day. Thanks.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. We have been traveling this journey.
Pastor, are you away from your phone? You sound distant.
Okay. What about now?
That's better. Thank you.
That's not better. Okay.
Well, it was early. Okay.
Yeah, I dropped it. That's why I said that's not better. The unknown is what we have been dealing with since we embarked on the journey. And we have addressed it by saying that we can't shape it because we don't know how to shape it. And we leave that to the universe. What we do is continue to follow the pathway of wisdom, understanding, and our spiritual experiences. Knowing that we must trust the universe or our Creator to guide what's happening in this earth. Let's think about this for a moment. We have talked about Babylon, which is the proper name for Africa. We have talked about the meaning of Babylon. We have talked about the meaning being the womb of life or the garden of life. And if our bodies are made from the dust of the earth, or meaning that our body is made from whatever the earth is made of, and we were conceived there in the Babylon, then that means that our bodies are life itself. The physical body is life. And why do I say that? If you look at the history of the descendants of those who left Babylon unwillingly, if you look at how the African has been treated ever since Europeans came in contact with the African in Africa, especially from the 1600s forward. Of course, it happened in 1500s, I should say. Forward, we should be dead, especially those of us who live in this country. Because every effort was put forth to lynch us, to starve us, to give us heart attacks, cancer, the whole 9 yards. Because if you think about the number of plants that produce carcinogenics as a result of the products they make, all of them in our community. So we should be dead. So why are we not? Because life cannot function or be vital in this earth unless we are the ones, unless we are living. And I do believe that the life of this country is centered around the African who was brought to this country. And it is on our shoulders to bring a sense of balance to the earth. Because it has been proven over and over again that Europeans care absolutely nothing about balance, and the only life they care about is their own. Over and over again, that has been proven. So, having been born from the womb of the original people in this earth, and being continuously the most spiritual people on this earth, it is imperative that we who have accepted who we are remain focused on our desires for harmony, for peace. We are not desiring harm for the people who have actually raped and pillaged the earth. And us as well, we're not looking for that. We're not looking for any vengeance for that. We are looking for peace because we have made a concerted effort to be the essence of forgiveness, to be everything that forgiveness represents. And being everything that forgiveness represents, that means that we have put in motion the spiritual spiritual energy that will bring restoration to those who have hell bent on wiping everybody off the earth who doesn't look like them, with the exception of a handful that they can use to benefit them. Does that make sense?
It does. I have a question, Pastor Jay.
Yes.
Was the Constitution written to keep Africans from having anything?
Yes.
So
If you
they didn't want
read-
us to have nothing.
If you read, well, they wanted us to be slaves. If you read,
Okay.
if you read the structure, I'm sorry, the Federalist Papers, talking about how the Constitution came to be, what you will find out is the majority of the input of the Constitution came from slaveholders. And there was not one article in that Constitution that was written that did not take into consideration. And the consideration that they gave to us was that we are less than human. And they knew it was wrong. And the reason I know they knew it was wrong, because you will not find the word slave in the Constitution. Neither will you find it in, what was that before the Constitution? Bill of Rights and
Declaration of Independence.
yeah, that also, that was, what is it? I can't think of it, but it was something that, that was something that was written before the Constitution, and they used that as a pattern for the Constitution. Confederate Papers, the Papers of Confederation, or something like that.
Articles of Confederation?
Articles of Confederation, that's what they were. And that they were used as a guide. So everything that's in there was geared toward us being subhuman. If they thought that that was the case, why is it they didn't put slaves in the Constitution? They knew who we are. And they did everything to make us forget who we are. I said yesterday, I used the word, one of the words that was used to cause us to have a bitter taste in our mouth, Niger. I said Niger, but it's Niger, the country in Africa that they corrupted the name and said nigger. But that was the valley of kings and queens. That's what Niger means. And we talked about the word black. That is separation. That had separated our minds from who we are to the extent that the majority of the people in this country are ashamed of being called African. They attack America onto it, but they don't want to be African. They want to be black, which is non-existent. All of these things have made us invisible. All of these words have made us invisible. And the more that the efforts have been put forth to make us invisible, the Creator has made us more visible. The things that they meant for our bad, the Creator meant for our good. They made us more visible. We have to embrace that reality. If we don't embrace that reality, then we are making ourselves invisible. When you call yourself when you talk about black people, what you are actually doing is driving a wedge between our ancestors and us. You're driving a wedge between the energy of the African, because black people doesn't exist. They don't have, there's no there's no roots, there's no culture there. Does that make sense? So what we are actually doing is committing blasphemy against ourselves. And blasphemy means that you have separated, willingly separated yourself from the power source. And when we deny our origin, we are separating ourselves from the power source. Can you see that?
Yes.
So we have to be cognizant of that. Isn't it something that no one want to look like us? Even us don't want to look like us. Think about that. Isn't that something that I mean, you can take the wealthiest man on earth and say to them, you can keep all your money, you can even make more money, but just change places with me. Take my skin color and you give me yours. You will not get any takers. Even though they can maintain all the wealth that they have. The one thing they don't want to be is what? Yeah, you know what it is. I don't have to say the word. There's one thing they don't want to be. On the other hand, the wealthy who looks like us is doing everything they can to be them. And guess what? They don't look like us either. Everything
Are you
to
talking-
be them.
Are you talking about the
what?
Tim Scotts and the Clarence Thomas?
No, I'm not. They poor.
Oh,
In regards to the people I'm talking about. I'm talking about billionaires.
okay.
I'm talking about people with the money like LeBron James. He's doing things with his money, of course. He has schools. He should put his money back into the community. But what was written on his gate when he moved to Los Angeles? So they reminded
The N-word.
Yes, they reminded him, no matter how much money you got, you still to us that. So when we look at all of these things, we should be the weakest people on earth. We should be all of us should be in the insane asylum. Because of how we have been treated and the traumas that in our DNA. Yet, we persevere. Yet, we survive. Yet, we are able to move beyond where they try to keep us. Your original question was in regards to the Constitution and them keeping us from having anything. A visible historical example of that is after enslavement, Africans put pennies and nickels together and organized communities in Durham, in Oklahoma, in Florida, and other places that were burned to the ground by white people because we did not have a right in their minds to excel, to move forward, to be able to be on parity in terms of what we have. And I have some thoughts about that. I do believe that was allowed to happen because the Creator did not intend for us to become, in our mindset, did not intend for us to become as the slaveholders did. Because our focus was on material things so we could be like them. And those things happened because our focus was supposed to be on a spiritual change for the whole world, and we didn't see that. We did not see that, and we have just begun to see it. Now, do I think that it could have happened in the past? I don't think it was time for that. Just like when we were extricated, kidnapped from Africa, why was it at the time that it happened? Because it was set to be then. And the funny thing about it is that for tens of thousands of years, we've occupied this earth. And the people who dominate this earth, 8,500 years old. Why is that? Because we have to have substance to create with. And the substance to create with is not skin color. The substance that we have to create with is a mindset. We are to create mindset that desire harmony in the earth. And creating a mindset that desires harmony in the earth is no different than what? Creating an image and likeness. Creating an image and likeness has nothing to do with skin tone, but it has everything to do with spiritual principles. Questions, comments? Does that make sense?
It does, and I want to thank I want to thank you and Barbara for giving us comforting words as far as she feeling nervous, because I did have nervous energy too, and I appreciate that because we know something's coming. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. But you're absolutely right. Something is coming. But the greatest something that's coming is harmony. All the rest of the stuff are distractions. And we cannot fall for the okie doke by chasing distractions.
Good morning,
Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Just one of the things I want to add is once you identify what the propaganda is, then from there you can make your adjustment. But yet you have to identify, or I have to identify what I feel the propaganda is. As an example, the very propaganda that Jews implement on the African American is the same propaganda that Hitler did with them. So for any kind of war to start, it starts with a high degree of propaganda. So when you look at Trump, is Trump a Republican? No, he's a nationalist. But it's the propaganda that he implements in the earth that people buy into. And one of the things that Hitler stated was, it's a luxury to lead people who have no desire to read. So if a person or a group of people have no desire to know about a situation, the easier it is to implement propaganda. The Bible is full of propaganda, which I buy into. Okie doke, man. Well, it's an allegory. And if the Bible is
George,
Reverend Richard.
Well, hold 1 second, please. There is a difference between an allegory and propaganda.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, if that's how you all think, I respect how you all think. I just wish you all would. I hope you respect what I think. So
I respect, yes, but that's just the truth. And I'll explain it in a minute. Go ahead and finish. Your question, your statement, I'm sorry.
Okay, though. Well, it ain't nothing to wild out over. Yet in life, for any war to start, it's going to be a high degree of propaganda. You look at what took place between the East Coast and West Coast, between Biggie and Tupac. A lot of propaganda implemented that we bought into. So once I identify what I feel is the propaganda, from there I'm going to make my adjustment, curve at it, and eat at it. So with the Israel and Pakistan, Palestinians, there's a lot of propaganda in there. Trump, propaganda. Same thing with Bill Clinton, propaganda. So I think we know that there's propaganda out here, yet from there, we identified, hey, Reverend Richard, what you see in this equation right here? Okay, well, I don't see that. That's what I see. Then from there, we get the dialogue in. How we going to make this here earth better? Are you going to dominate the earth, or you going to seize the day? So there's some propaganda that's taking place out here. Whatever you see, you bring to the table. It helps someone else. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. The allegory is the Bible. And this is an allegory that tells a story that hides a spiritual truth. It is telling us a story about people because it is easier to pass that story on to others if it is in story form, as opposed to writing it the way that it was intended to be understood. Propaganda is information that is designed to mislead people. So now the other part of that is this: knowing that the Bible is an allegory and what the allegory does, and knowing that propaganda and what it does, then it's not about what we think. It's about what's true. So there are people who think that we are animals in terms of less than they are. The other part of this thing, I think that if you do a deep dive into what Hitler did, you will see that the only ones we talk about are the Jews. The only ones we talk about are the Jews. We don't talk about the Africans who were in that concentration camp. There was a doctor in one of the concentration camps of African descent who saved the lives of Jews who were dying from disease. There was an African regiment, or African battalion, that freed Jews from the concentration camps. Yet, no one talks about the 100,000, 200,000 Africans that Hitler put in the gas chambers. It's almost like we didn't exist. The Jews don't even talk about us, even though we were in the camp with them. Again, making us invisible. And we are perpetuating that sense of being invisible because of the propaganda, which is designed to mislead people. Propaganda is 6 million Jews were killed. And no attention paid to anyone else. If it was the truth, the total truth, then you would deal with everyone who came everyone who were in concentration camps and killed by Hitler. So we have to stop making ourselves invisible. and make sure that we see what the truth really is. And George, I do apologize for cutting you off to say that about allegories and propaganda. However, I had to put that out there because there are people who drop calls or people who get off the phone, and I did not want someone to leave him with with believing that the Bible is propaganda and that it's designed to mislead people. Certainly not. The Bible has been used to mislead people.
Okay, that
It
makes,
is used. Go ahead. Hello? Someone's about to say something? It has been used as propaganda, but it doesn't make it propaganda. Does that make sense? Questions, comments?
Well, Reb, thanks for the correction on that. And I didn't mean to say, or maybe I did mean to say the Bible is propaganda. What I really meant to say, religion has a lot of propaganda in it. But nonetheless, though, thanks for the correction.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Great. Anyone else? Anyone else? Any other questions or comments?
this is Vermel. I want to thank George for what he said, and I want to thank you, Sage, for correcting my understanding about the difference between propaganda and allegory. I appreciate that. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Comments? Questions? I think today was more about speaking to the unsettled feelings that would have been experienced if we have not talked about the possibilities and the probability of Trump winning this election. If that had taken place without us talking about this, then the strength to get beyond that nervousness will not be in the atmosphere, will not be in the macro. It's there. Be mindful of this, all of us. Every single thing that we are talking about is in the macro. And because it's in the macro, we have an obligation to do everything in our power to make sure what we put in the macro is the truth. We have been misguided for too long. We must make every effort. And that is why the teachers us, or we correct each other, or we see things and we talk it out because of that. Now, 3 o'clock today, California group, we meet. And next Saturday is the 11th. And that is the day that we will be there on, I'm sorry, I didn't even ask. Is there anything before we leave? Okay. Next Saturday is the day that we will discuss history/spirituality, so we can get a clearer picture of how we got to where we are. And I would love for at least the teachers to show their faces that come on Zoom. And if you get up early and you have time to take the rollers out your hair and put on a shirt or a blouse, then then no one will see all the early stuff. Anyway, I appreciate that very much because the stuff that we're going to talk about going to be, yeah? And you say, why are we doing this? Well, I'm not so much concerned about the facilities of the teachers because of the mass amount of research that we've done and then the multiple conversations that we've had about the things that we're going to be talking about. This is simply an opportunity for all of us to put it all together at one time in one spot. I'm more concerned about putting it in the macro. I'm more concerned about speaking to the people who are on the phone or on Zoom who have not been exposed to an understanding of what we are going to talk about. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, you guys have a great day. The sun is out, it's a pretty day, and I suggest that you enjoy every moment of it. And we will talk again tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. Thank you very much. Appreciate your presence, whether you spoke or not. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody.
Everybody.